Great to see so many familiar faces. Thanks for coming out. Just got off the practice field, so a little casual, but we can make do with this. Great to see all your faces. Football season's right around the corner, 10 days away from kickoff. Really excited. Really like this football team. I'm sure you have a lot of questions, so I did enough in my opening presser at the Big Ten Media Day. What was the time? 10:40, 10:50? Not bad. Some of the false reports out there is 14:50 is inaccurate. It was 10:40, I think. Not to say anybody in here did that, just saying, heard some rumors. So we'll get to questions. How's that? Good to see everybody.
On Tuesday, you talked about Thursday maybe being a scrimmage for some evaluations. How did that go? What'd you see?
Yeah, it went great. We've done a few things. We've had another scrimmage. We've had a mock game where we go through all special teams situations, do it under the lights. We were going to have one in the stadium on Thursday, but weather made us come inside. But we did the same type of thing. I love this football team. I love the depth of this football team. I love the competition of this football team. We have more competition this year in 2024 than we've had since I've been the head coach here at Minnesota. And that's a credit to our staff, our recruiting, the players, the way they've kind of taken on this whole year. So hopefully I answered your question. We got a lot of questions answered. But it's not about just answering questions. Okay, you're number one. We have a lot of different starters. We do. We have a lot of guys that are going to be splitting time. So they're both starters. And so I think that's what's really healthy about this football team as we keep going forward.
What positions could you see splitting time as a possibility?
Well, I think when you look at defensive line, I think there's going to be rotations that continue to happen just like that normally is. We just have more people that are going to be rotating, which is good for our D-line. Offensive line, you can see at some positions we're going to be doing that as well. Wide receiver, we're going to be rolling some people in. Tight end, you're going to be rolling some people in. You want to be able to do it. We have so many different packages on defense too, so it's hard to sit there and go, hey, here's the 11 guys. I mean, from our nickel package to our dime package to all these other packages that we have, as we talked earlier about the personnel that our defense has, I think that helps as we continue to go into game one. I'm not going to tell you all those different packages, but it's really fun to be able to plug and play based on what these guys can do and put different combinations on the field, whether it's first and second down or third down.
Development have you noticed from the corner room throughout camp?
Yeah, tremendous growth. I was just having a discussion with one of our coaches about that. You have Wally and you have Ethan. Both those guys played a ton of football, but when you start to look at like Zaquan Bryant's development, you're really pleased with what he's been able to do, especially for such a young kid. He got a chance to play in the bowl game, but that has helped him exponentially get to where he is right now. We've got a lot of other guys in that mix at that corner position. Ryan Kelly's had a really good camp. He's big, long, strong. He's gained a bunch of weight. And then we've got a bunch of guys that can play a lot of different positions, whether they slide down inside, stay outside. That's a pretty deep room. And they're aggressive. Like they've done a really good job of getting better. I think Coach Monroe's done a great job coaching them. Got to keep getting better. But I like where we are there. And you mix that with the safeties and then the nickels, you start to look at there's more guys that are going to be playing in the secondary than we've had in the past.
BJ, new era of college football with transfer portal, name, image, likeness, revenue sharing, looks like coming down the pike, expansion of the
Salary cap.
Yeah, expansion of the Big Ten, expansion of the college football playoff. What do you think is what's the ceiling as you look at it for this program now in this new era? A lot of changes.
Dave, I love the question. I think it's a little bit, we're 10 days from game day. I think that's a little more for a few weeks ago and maybe the offseason. But I do think the changes of college football are really healthy for where we're going. It's really positive for the student athlete. It's positive for the universities, as you can see financially. But when you start to look at what it's going to do for the change of college football, we don't necessarily know what that's going to look like. We're not there yet. Nobody's there yet. That's the future. I think with the new college football expansion, I think that makes people really excited, especially at the University of Minnesota. As I said at Big Ten Media Day, I think when you had 4 teams in the college football playoff, you could probably name 2 or 3 that were going to make it from the start of the season, then they were probably in there at the end. And maybe there was 1 or 2 that maybe some people had on the fringe, or maybe there was one shock. I think as you go through this, and if it's 12 teams, which it is in the college football playoff, that leaves the window open for a lot of teams to get in there from different conferences. And I think that's exciting for the fans. It's exciting for college football and the growth of our sport and the health of our sport as we keep moving forward. One thing I've always loved about college football is it constantly changes. There's one thing that changes is it always changes. And I think that's what makes it really exciting. Not just rules, but how it's all done. Not just like on the field. This year we're going to talk about the drop tackle, and that's fine. Those are all good changes. But I'm talking about huge changes that change the dynamics of what college football look like in the future based on what was in the past. Words like scholarship, walk-on, whatever our definitions were prior to that, and our vision of that was, those are all changing of what that word actually means. It has a lot of different meanings now. Walk-on has a lot of different meanings now. 105 puts people on this parity, not equal playing field, because with NIL still being in play, but when you start talking salary cap and you start talking those types of things, it definitely creates a little bit, I think, more parity, where I think every fan base is going to sit there and go, okay, hey, listen, we got a great opportunity here. If we invest in X, Y, and Z, we have just as good a shot as a lot of other teams. So that's what's really exciting as we go forward. And I think I've said that publicly at Big Ten Media Day, that I think it's really healthy, especially for Minnesota, with the changes of college football.
When you went looking for a quarterback and you got Max, how involved did you think FCS level would be in that search?
I'm sorry, Randy, you mean
Getting somebody from the FCS level, was that something you were looking at all along? Or?
Yeah, no, it wasn't necessarily we needed somebody just from FCS. I mean, it wasn't FCS or bust. It was the best available player. And we needed somebody to come in here that understood the situation. There was pressure of the situation right from the start. We had to find the right fit for what we were looking for. And if you think back to it, Randy, we didn't bring in 4 quarterbacks with all this NIL money and stuff like that and say, okay, you guys all compete and let's go. We had to bring in somebody who was going to be able to lead the team the minute they got here, was going to be able to do okay without maybe without the most competition threatening them, was going to have to do okay with maybe not competition threatening them, knowing that they're the guy, to handle that responsibility in a very mature way and in a leadership way, and go out there and perform at the highest level. Because the option after that for us was, okay, a true freshman and bringing in another guy that we're going to develop. So when you're looking at it, you had to be right. So, every decision you make, you want to be right, and you're feeling you have to be right. But this one, we had to get right. And Max has just exceeded all of our expectations. He's got to go out there and prove it and play on game day and do what he does every single day. The only thing Max Brosmer has to do is be the best version of Max Brosmer every day. And that's what he's capable of doing, and that's what he'll do. And we have the most confidence in him. He's had a great 6 months. He's an amazing human being, and he's made this program better. He's made the people around him better. He's made our culture better. He's made University of Minnesota better, and I'm really proud of him for that. And it's going to be fun to be able to watch him here in 10 days.
How's Darius Taylor doing right now, and how do you feel about the running back depth?
Yeah, he's doing great. We brought in a ton of players for that reason. In general, if anybody ever gets banged up, we got a few bumps and bruises, but. I'm going to use the same line as we get in 10 days before game day. I mean, the injury report will come out, 2 hours before kickoff. But this is a very healthy football team. And I love how they've gone about their business throughout training camp. I thought we structured it to benefit them, which we always do, but you learn from your past to create your future on certain things. We listened to a lot of the science and data and applied our whole training camp schedule accordingly. But I really like the depth of the room, from the top with Darius all the way down. And we brought in a lot of guys for that position, a lot of guys who have played big-time college football. And then some other guys that have been young have really come on strong. So it's going to be fun to see how that all plays out, and as you guys continue to compete within the season, but feel really good about where we're at 10 days out.
What do you think you know about North Carolina in 2024?
Yeah, we just started them yesterday with game planning and looking at them and starting to work with our coaching staff and dedicating a lot of hours towards that in between our players and training camp. First of all, I got a lot of respect for Mac Brown. A lot of you, I think it's well documented, the relationship him and I have, and he's always been really, really good to me. He's been a sneaky mentor because I get him at the most opportune times, and he's always been really, really good to me. They're really talented. They got 8 returning starters on defense, and they added a bunch of transfers that do start other places in the ACC or other places. They're deep. I think it's well documented. I think the AP All-American team came out, and one of their running backs, Hampton. He's really, really good. And we played against him last year. They've got a stable of running backs. They always do. They've got really good receivers. I think everybody's talking about, well, Drake May's not there, but they reloaded. They didn't rebuild. They reloaded with the guys that they have. Now, I know they're not naming a starter, and we expect to see 2 or 3 of them, and we'll prepare that way. But they all can run. They all can throw. They've all played college football at a high level. So, but they're talented. I mean, they're a North Carolina team, ACC team, and Mac Brown coach team. And a lot of the guys are very familiar with what we saw last year when we went out to Chapel Hill. So we got to play our best football. We know that. We're preparing to, working hard really every day, 10 days out. Right now, still working a lot of Minnesota versus Minnesota, and as the days go on, we'll transfer that into more North Carolina.
How do you feel the defense has responded to Cory Hetherman?
I think it's been great. You really hope that the first 6 months of that really gel. It's one thing if things don't gel, and then you're all right. We got to get through the season. We got to do this. We got to manufacture certain things. There's no manufacturing with him. He is one of the most authentic, genuine, real football coaches I've ever been around. And I've told you a few stories of why that is, but he loves football. He's a really good football coach. The players love playing for him. And you can see that in how they practice. You've been out there, how they play, the energy they bring. We talked about 3 things that we needed to bring as a defense, that excitement level every single day. And it's been there unmatched every day. The swarming, we're swarming more and better than we ever have to the ball. And then you have to bring that on-the-field violence, that contact, that willingness to be really physical. And that's a mental piece. And we've demanded that every day from them, and our players have responded in the right way. And I just think they love playing for them. I'm still old school when it comes down to there's all these things, Dave, you mentioned, the new college football and why people play. It could be for a lot of external-driven things. It could be for money. It could be for power. It could be for ego. It could be for draft stock. It could be for all these things. I'm still old school where, when I played for people. I played for people. And I played for my university. And I feel like this team has a little bit of that old school feel to it. We have all the new changes of college football like everybody else does. But for each other, this team is better than I've had in the past. And not saying we didn't, it just has exceeded that. I really love where they're at, and I think they're playing for them. I think they're playing for our staff. I think they're playing for each other, player to player, coach to player, player to coach. It's very refreshing. They're a fun team to coach, and that's why I say when they're fun to coach, that's what I mean. They really do it for someone else, and not only just themselves, but that's not the number one thing showing right now.
Buzzwords for Cory Hetherman's defense. How much does blitzing come in? Obviously, he was aggressive when he was a DC before. How much does that factor in how you guys scheme up?
It's a piece of it, but it's not like we're doing more than we did last year. I think the difference in the defense is it's very similar to what we've had. Remember, we weren't going off the tracks and going off the rails here and going outside of the family of what we really want as a defense and what we core believe in. But it's his own personality, and then it's our personnel. Our personnel allow us to do certain things that we did last year and get a chance to even do them better, or do certain things that we're doing now that maybe we couldn't do last year with the personnel that we have. But it's not just that. But I think those 3 buzzwords that we used, the ESV, is what we're doing every single day. And whether that's base, whether that's just normal cover 2, whether that, whatever it is, that's I feel like that's the difference in this year from last year.
Will you describe maybe 4 or 5 deep with the running backs, but a little glimpse into their style and what they're like?
Yeah, obviously Darius has grown up a lot in the offseason, and he's really, Darius played high school wideout at times too, and then he was a running back, and he did a lot of things. So he's brought that full playmaker ability to our offense, in the pass game, in the run game. We brought in Marcus Majors, who played a ton of football at Oklahoma. Every time I see that number 24, I just think, man, he looks like 24, just bigger, just a bigger version of the old 24 with Muhammad. And Muhammad stopped by a few practices, which has been really cool to see him. But Marcus is, again, another guy who's exceeded my expectations. He can run in between the tackles really well. He can get thin real fast, and he can play behind his pads really well, anticipates blocks. I think that's huge for a running back. Can you see the whole scheme and how it's working? Then, okay, here's just my read. Then I go to the next read. You can tell people who are a little robotic. He is not that. It naturally happens. He can see blocks before they happen. He can see it on the next level. He makes people miss in the hole. And JoJo Newbin's played a ton of football for us. He was moved from safety to running back a few years back, and he's played a ton of football for us. And then we have a few guys that we brought in. Femi Ijiboy has been great as a true freshman. He's had a great training camp. Brought in Jaron Magnum, who's kind of been a journeyman, different spots, and we're really glad he's here. He's really matured and developed. Big back, plays behind his pads. He's got better feet and more speed than I think people give him credit for. And then C.A. Bangura, who was the freshman player of the year in the MAC, and 2 years ago. And he's a young back, but he's got good size. He's just got to continue to bend, and he's getting better with every day. And that's what I mean about our running back room. Derek LeCaptain played running back when we moved him, from linebacker to there. JoJo Newbin came from safety. We knew we had to emphasize the running back position, and the competition's been really good. And I thought Darius done a really good job with Marcus of leading that room, especially in practice.
What's the biggest benefit of having your first 4 games at home?
Well, I think, you got 12 games. They're all equally important. I don't look at it as just home and away. I think to win at a high level, you got to win on the road, and you have to win at home. When you look at somebody that's going to go play in the college football playoff, you can't be like, oh, we got this many home games, and, oh, boy, we got to go on the road. People are they're talking about you better be 10, 11 wins to get into the college football playoff, and that means you got to win all your games. No matter where they are. If they're in a parking lot, you better win them. So I just love playing in front of our fans. I think we create one of the more underrated environments in college football. I really do. I love our fans. I love our student body. We got a gold out coming up in 10 days, which the last gold out we had, which you all saw that to open the season at Nebraska, was a pretty special environment. And I love people for that here in our state. I love our fans for that. Again, I think they deserve a lot of credit because they create an atmosphere that I feel that is a little underrated at times, playing in Huntington Bank Stadium, and it's fun. Our players thrive off that. They feed off that energy, and it's like anything. You feed off that energy at home, and then you play that underdog role when you go on the road, like nobody likes you. So the sounds you're using an advantage on one side, and then you go somewhere else and using that sounds to pump up your team on the other side. And it's kind of that all for one for all type mentality. But love playing at Huntington Bank and can't wait for 10 days from now.
We'll do 2 more for Coach.
PJ, when you look at the offense, do you look at a position group that's maybe you're looking to see a little bit more out of? Wide receiver comes to mind. Is there something that you need to see from a position group that needs to get to the level of everyone else?
I know what you're asking, Andy, and I think, and I respect your question, and I'm not dodging it. But I think that as well as I do, to have an efficient offense, here at the University of Minnesota, everybody has to be involved. Even when we had Bateman, we were the best when he had Tyler Johnson, and you had Keeft and catching balls and a really good running game. Every position has to do their job to the best of their ability and meet the expectation that's created for them within the program. And when that's the hardest part for whether it's media, fans, coaches, when you have an expectation of something and somebody, because those somebodies fit inside something. Right? And that something's a scheme. So you have this expectation, and then they show you what they can and cannot do. Well, that's the expectation. And then there's a thing called reality. And you're doing everything you can as a coach to make sure the expectation and the reality actually match. And if they match, we're in good shape. It's when the expectation and reality aren't there where the frustration comes into play. And the more they're apart, that space gets bigger. And most of the time, that's what negativity is filled with. I expected this, I didn't get this. We're still waiting to move into our house. Call me frustrated. Heather's right there moving right now. We're moving in today. This is June 1, July 1, August 1. Now it's August 19th, and she's moving in. I told her a year ago I'd help. Well, I can't help that it's August 19th, and our driveway's just being poured today, guys. How can you move in? The movers show up the same time the concrete guys show. I don't understand that. So, pardon the expectation not meeting reality. Call me crazy. Actually, they don't have to worry about me. The Italian-Irish woman's at home. So, who's got a huge heart. She got them all lunch today. Every single person there. Bought them all lunch. Very nice of her.
Final one for Coach. How's the special teams operation come together with a new long snapper in there?
You know what? With Ryan and Allen, I'll be honest. I don't really haven't noticed. And I think Brady Weeks said it best. He'd stand up at different events and My name is Brady Weeks. It's the last time I ever want you to hear my name. And he sat down. And that was Brady Weeks. He was so valuable. The two guys we have, same type of thing. I feel really good about where we are there. They got to continue to challenge each other daily, which I know they will. And we feel we got two really good ones there. So I know that our specialists feel the same way, and we support them every way we can and keep coaching them up. We got it. Rowboat, Sky, and Go Gophers. We're supposed to have this in our house today to treat all of you. And sorry, it's not done.